It's freshman year of college, and you're a bright-eyed business student. The world is your oyster, you've been told, and a business degree is one of the most flexible degrees one can pursue. You decide to attend an info session held by one of the most prestigious business clubs on campus, where seniors are presenting about their summer internship experiences. The first speaker, a 6-foot student athlete named Clay, describes his time working at a bulge bracket investment bank called Morgan Stanley in New York. As he's presenting, you think to yourself, investment banking definitely sounds like a sweet gig. The high salary and fat bonus doesn't hurt either. And after Clay finishes, a girl named Kate steps up and describes her time at a consulting firm that you've never heard of. The name sort of rhymes with McDonald's. As she wraps up, you think to yourself, consulting also seems pretty cool. Must be nice to work with CEOs on strategy projects and fly around the country in business class as a 22-year-old. You leave the event excited and hopeful for what the future holds. One question remains, however. Should you pursue investment banking or management consulting? So investment banking and management consulting are two of the most compared fields in business because they both pay really well out of school, give you interesting work, and also a wide array of exit opportunities. Now, there's a lot of videos out there already comparing IB versus consulting, but not a lot of them actually talk about what the day-to-day is like as a junior professional. In this video, we're going to discuss the subtle nuances between investment banking and management consulting at the junior level that can really impact your experience in either. My name is Matt Huang, and I'm a current associate at BCG, which is a management consultant. Prior to BCG, I spent over a year in investment banking before jumping over to consulting. And when I did, I was really surprised at just how many differences there were between IB and consulting. Now, full disclaimer, this video is based on my personal experience, so please take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, let's get into it. So key difference number one is going to be just the work styles and the workflows in banking versus consulting. In terms of the typical workflow in banking, when you're working on a deck, this is how it goes. You are working on a PowerPoint, and when it's time to send it to your managing director for comments, you will PDF that PowerPoint, and you will attach it as a file to your email to your managing director. They will then open up that PDF and mark it up, handwritten, usually on an iPad, in what I suspect to be a moving vehicle, and send it back to you. And you will then open up the PDF and try to decipher their handwritten comments, which then need to be translated into actual changes in the PowerPoint. And then you will repeat this iteration process as you go. In consulting, what really surprised me was that nobody uses PDFs as frequently as in banking. Most people on case teams are going to be working out of a shared PowerPoint file, and so you can go in and edit live. And what you're typically going to do is you're actually going to just share a link to the PowerPoint file with your managing director, and they will then go in and add specific comments onto each page. And so it's very clear what changes that they want made in most cases. In terms of meetings, you're typically going to have a 9 a.m. check-in call every day with your case team, and a 5 p.m. checkout call. And the purpose of these is to really help you get aligned with your manager and team on what exactly you need to do. So the expectations are extremely clear, what you need to be doing at the start of the day, and also what you need to do to get to logging off for the night. And so, as I mentioned, it's very clear, and your manager often has a very good handle on what you're working on. Additionally, there are these meetings called case team meetings, where the specific purpose is to align with the senior members of your team on what you're working on. And so just having a regular cadence of CTMs really helps with making sure that, the senior membership is aligned with the junior team in terms of expectations. And so there's never that big of a disconnect. Also, there are just subtle things in consulting that make your life a little bit easier. For example, consultants all use ThinkCell, which is a software within PowerPoint that allows you to create really beautifully formatted charts and graphs in a matter of seconds. And so this often saves 2 to 3 times the amount of time when I'm creating charts in PowerPoint than when I was in banking and I had to create graphs using native Excel and PowerPoint functions. That's not to say that you can't create a beautiful page using pure Excel and PowerPoint, but it really does help to be able to just use ThinkCell and update the chart immediately in a matter of seconds and make sure that the formatting all looks right. Because as a junior professional, to be quite honest, a lot of your time is going to be spent formatting pages. So key difference number 2 is going to be the cultures. Now, culture is a pretty big buzzword, so I'm going to be very clear about what I mean when I say culture. In finance, I would say the people that are hired into investment banking tend to be, relatively speaking, more homogenous than in consulting, because people who go into investment banking are usually very focused on finance. Maybe they've studied finance and accounting in undergrad and gone to a top university. Whereas in consulting, people will come from a diverse array of backgrounds. You'll have people who have graduate degrees like MDs and PhDs, and you'll also have people who have been liberal arts majors and have no business school background. And so as a result, the culture of consulting firms is going to be a little bit different as well. But one of the key differences that I've really noticed comparing my time in banking versus consulting personally has been that in consulting, there is much more of an emphasis on individual contribution, discussion, and dissent. And what I mean by that is you're really encouraged to speak up in meetings and to disagree with senior members of the team if you believe something is wrong. And that is something that I think in finance is not as encouraged. It's a much more old school and conservative industry. It's very hierarchical, and you're very focused on execution. So to do a good job in investment banking, you really have to just do what you're told and do it very well. So key difference number 3 is going to be quality of life. Now, in both investment banking and consulting, you're going to be working some pretty long hours, but I found consulting personally to be a lot more sustainable for a few different reasons. But first is that consultants religiously respect the weekends, and so you will very rarely end up having to work on the weekend. Whereas when I was in investment banking, it was really quite common to work on the weekends, especially on Sundays in the afternoons and into the evening in preparation of the week ahead. The other thing is that in between projects in consulting, you'll often have what's known as beach time, which is when you're looking for your next project and you're either not working on anything or you are just staffed on some light proposal work or some other short-term staffing. And this is also when people tend to take vacations. So it's much easier to plan vacations when you're in consulting. And also mentally, it's very easy to have an end date in sight that you can work towards when you're on a tough project. Because in consulting, you know for a fact that the project is going to end in, say, 6 or 7 weeks. Whereas in investment banking, it's really tough to know when your deal is going to close, because oftentimes these things take a very long time to finish, and a deal can get dragged on as long as a year or more. So key difference number 4 is going to be staffing and project work. In consulting, you're typically going to be working on one project at any given time, and you will be 100% focused on that single project. Whereas in banking, it's quite common to be staffed on multiple deals at the same time. So this depends on what you want, and if you prefer to be focused 100% on one topic, then you might like consulting more. Whereas if you want to get varied experience at the same time, then maybe you should choose banking. Now that said, you're going to get an extremely wide range of experience in consulting as well, because not only do consulting firms work on a much broader array of projects than deal types in investment banking, but also the average length of a consulting project is shorter than the average length of a M&A sell-side deal. So you'll naturally just get more reps. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, I'm biased and I clearly favor consulting over investment banking for the reasons I've just discussed. But I do want to say that investment banking was a very valuable experience for me, and that I would still highly recommend people to go into if they have the opportunity. Because banking taught me a lot of things. It taught me financial modeling, it taught me about a M&A transaction process, and it taught me a lot about myself as well. If you're in the privileged position of having an offer in either of these industries, you should definitely jump at the opportunity, because not only will you grow a lot professionally, but you'll also grow a lot personally along the way. Because there's nothing like working past midnight on consecutive nights to start up an internal dialogue about what you really value. Anyways, that's it for this video, and if you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next one.